Everyone loves the first day of school, right? New year, new classes, new friends. It's a day full of potential and hope, before all the dreary depressions of reality show up and ruin all the fun. I like the first day of school for a different reason, though. You see, I have a sort of power. When I look at people, I can sense a sort of aura around them, a coloured outline based on how long the person has to live. Most everyone I meet my age is surrounded by a solid green hue, which means they have plenty of time left. A fair amount of them have a yellow-orangish tinge to their auras, which tends to mean a car crash or some other tragedy. Anything that takes people before their time, as they say. The real fun is when auras venture into the red end of the spectrum, though. Every now and again, I'll see someone who's basically a walking stoplight, and those are the ones who get murdered or kill themselves. It's such a rush to see them and know their time is numbered. With that in mind, I always get to class very early, so I can scout out my classmates' fates. The first kid who walked in was basically radiating red. I chuckled to myself, too damn bad, bro. But as people kept walking in, they all had the same intense glow. I finally caught a glimpse of my rose-tinted reflection in the window, but I was too stunned to move. Our professor stepped in and locked the door. His aura was a sickening shade of green. It has been said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. I understand the sentiment behind the saying, but it's wrong. It's wrong. I entered the building on a bet. I was strapped for cash and didn't buy into the old legends of the hotel to begin with, so $50 was more than enough to get me to do it. It was simple. Just reach the top floor, the 45th floor. Shine my flashlight from the window, and that's it. The hotel was old and broken, including the elevator, so that meant hiking up the stairs. Those fucking stairs. So up the stairs I went. As I reached each platform, I noted the old brass plaques displaying the floor numbers. 15, 16, 17, 18. I felt a little tired as I crept higher. But so far, no ghosts, no cannibals, no demons. Piece of cake. I can't tell you how happy I was when I entered the last stretch of numbers. I joyfully counted them aloud at each platform. 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 44. I stopped and looked back down the stairs. I must have miscounted, so I continued up. 44. One more flight. 44. And then down 10 flights. 44. 15 flights. 44. And it's been the same for as long as I can remember. So really, insanity isn't doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. It's knowing that the results will never, ever change. That each door leads to the same staircase, to the same number. It's realizing you no longer fall asleep. It's not knowing whether you've been running for days or weeks or years. It's when the sobbing slowly turns into laughter. He'd been given the watch on his 10th birthday. It was an ordinary grey plastic wristwatch in every respect, except for the fact that it was counting down. That is all the time you have left in the world, son. Now use it wisely. And indeed, he did. As the watch ticked away, the boy, now a man, lived life to the fullest. He climbed mountains and swam oceans. He talked and laughed and lived and loved. The man was never afraid, for he knew exactly how much time he had left. Eventually, the watch began its final countdown. The old man stood looking over everything he had done, everything he had built. 5. He shook hands with his old business partner, the man who had long been his friend. 4. His dog came and licked his hand, earning a pat on the head for its good companionship. 3. He hugged his son, knowing that he had been a great father. 2. He kissed his wife on the forehead one last time. 1. The old man smiled and closed his eyes. Then nothing happened. The watch beeped once and turned off. The man stood standing there, very much alive. You would think in that moment he would have been overjoyed. Instead, for the first time in his life, the man was scared. In the summer of 2013, I found myself driving home alone on Highway 902 from a party. It was almost midnight and, needless to say, it was pitch black. As was usual at night, I was on the edge. I had the radio off and I could hear nothing but the muffled roar of tyres on the pavement and the dull hum of the engine. I stole a glance into the middle of the rearview mirror and saw nothing but darkness through the back window. I know that I looked backwards and saw nothing. I'm sure of it. Just the seemingly endless blackness of night. I remember it so clearly because not 10 seconds later a car passed me to the left, headlights on. I had one of those sudden adrenaline rushes, like when you think you see a person outside your bedroom window when it's just a tree. Or you start awake at night feeling the fear of falling. 10 seconds earlier, nothing had been behind me. Suddenly a car. I drove the rest of the way home, shivering and knowing something was off. The next morning, I found 2 sets of scratches near the back of my van. One was on the left rear, one was on the right. The car was pretty old. They could have been there for months. But that was the first time I distinctly remember seeing them. In hindsight, there are 2 possibilities for what happened that night. Possibility 1. By some glitch in reality or something paranormal, this other car had somehow appeared behind me within 10 seconds of me checking my mirror. Like some weird ghost crap or something. However, the second option is what makes my blood run cold whenever I consider it. It didn't even occur to me until months after the fact, but it makes me dread driving alone at night even more. Possibility 2. The car was normal. It had approached me from the rear and passed to my left. However, something large and wide and as black as night had been clinging to the rear of my car, obscuring my view through the window and leaving deep scratches on the sides, and I had inadvertently driven it home with me. The rainy season began in early summer, and June was no exception. It did not surprise the man when he discovered rainwater dripping from his dining room ceiling. Shrugging it off, he placed a tall pot beneath the leak and expected it to stop on its own. However, it continued to rain, and before he knew it, the pot would threaten to overflow. He had to dump the water first thing out in the morning and straight after return home from work at night. Eventually, he began to notice the water damage at the source of the leak. The white ceiling had been discoloured, turning a dull shade of brown. He checked the weather and realised it would be raining sporadically over the next 10 days, not stopping. The man was worried about the ceiling, and it was becoming a really expensive repair, so he called a local handyman. Unfortunately, the man could not have the repairs done, because only his landlord could sign for the repairs. It was a frustrating policy, but a policy nonetheless. The man called his landlord, but couldn't reach him. He left a few voicemails detailing how the damage was becoming progressively worse. The man was clueless as to why his landlord would not return his calls. They usually kept in touch, speaking at least twice a month. Finally, he reasoned that he would not be held accountable for any damages sustained. One night the man was startled awake by a massive thump. He quickly turned on his bedside lamp and just vaguely he could see an overturned table and a large shape lying across it. He sprinted out of his apartment and called the police, gagging at the smell. Later, the man sat in the police station with a blanket wrapped around his shoulders and a coffee mug resting in his hands. He did know one thing, however. There had been a dead body in his ceiling, and the water had saturated it so badly that it caved in under the weight. So far, the body was unidentifiable due to the rainwater and was being autopsied. While the man waited, he called his landlord and finally reached him. Panicking as he explained the situation, his landlord was just as alarmed, and the man pleaded for him to come to the station while he made his statement. The man paused as a detective crossed over to him, and he lowered his phone. Wondering if the body could have been identified, his blood ran cold immediately, and he shook his head with terror. The body belonging to Richard Thompson, his landlord, who had died over a year ago. But that's not what disturbed him most, however. If his landlord was dead, then who was pretending to be him? Thank you so much, guys, for listening to my first narration of 5 scary stories. This will only be the first volume and the first video for a while, because I'm just trying to get this channel started. But if you liked, please give it a thumb up and leave a comment down below to any links of scary stories you want to hear me narrate. I'll see you in the next video. Laters.